Okay, we're about a day late on this one because you and I were at the Lions playoff game. It was a full day long experience for us and had to get home, rest up a little bit, watch Michigan before we could come talk Illinois. Illinois loses at home to Maryland. Whew. Very surprised by this result. 76-67 was the final score at the State Farm Center. You and I did watch this game briefly in your basement before going to the Lions game. And we couldn't really believe what was unfolding before our eyes. This just did not look like any version of Illinois we've seen this season, with or without Terrence Shannon. Just a lot of stuff that seemed unconventional, unorthodox, and just not the norm for individuals. Like Quincy Guerrier looked like a totally different player in this game. Couldn't make a layup. And other guys were making similar odd mistakes. Justin Harmon couldn't buy a bucket whatsoever. Damask ended up with 26 points, but 5 turnovers is what the box score showed. It felt like 12 turnovers to just 1 assist. And just some weird things. And then on the other side, Maryland, who has been like a dead fish all season long, like a totally dead basketball team, showed a bunch of life. Jameer Young was like talking that shit, hunting switches, 28 points. Julian Reese, 20 points. They killed them points in the paint in this game. What happened?
Yeah, I to put it quite simply, I just think that Illinois was out-muscled and out-toughed in this basketball game. And I think that's evident by the points in the paint, um, by the points in the paint number. And to me, it's two numbers that really equivalent to being out-toughed and outworked. They didn't have the toughness to finish around the basket. I thought there was a lot of soft finishes by Illinois around the basket, not going up strong. Plenty of opportunities for guys like Gary to go up and dunk the basketball. Plenty of opportunities for guys like Justin Harmon to finish shots. And I thought every single player on Illinois struggled with making bunnies at the rim, which is evident of their 32% from the field shooting percentage. And not only were on the offensive end were they struggling to finish at the rim, then on the defensive end, they were letting Julian Reese just absolutely take their lunch down low. And Jameer Young was going to the basket and finishing. So, Maryland was tough enough to go to the hoop and finish on the other end. Illinois wasn't tough enough to do it on their offensive end. And I mean, that was really the story of the game. I get it, cold game. The Orange Crush was dead, in my opinion. Just watching it from the TV screen could have been different from somebody there, but the energy in the building just seemed extremely off. And look, sometimes missing layups and not being able to hit the broadside of a barn or whatever that phrase is can do that. But there was just no energy, no toughness. And when you give a team like Maryland, who's been struggling, an opportunity to outwork you and out-tough you and bring the energy to your home floor, you're at risk of losing. And, obviously we know the history with how Maryland and these Illinois games go too. Like Maryland seems to somewhat have the Illini's number, I guess. So I think that's what you saw in this game.
Yeah, I definitely think they got more and more frustrated as the game wore on. It's like they were generating good looks, they just weren't going in, and then they started pressing, and then they started getting in their own heads a little bit. I think we saw in the final 10 minutes of the game especially, felt like a lot of guys were taking shots because they knew they were supposed to take the shot and like try and end the run. And what that turned into was some tough ones, like some kind of off the dribble twos, floatery type shots where there was a decent hand. And whether it was at the end of the shot clock or early in the shot clock, it just didn't feel like a comfortable shot. They also missed a lot of open ones, though, too. Like, don't get it twisted. 6 for 22 from 3. A lot of those were good looks. They just didn't go. Coleman Hawkins fouled out in this game with, like 4 minutes left in the game? 3 minutes left in the game, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. On a questionable call, too, by the way.
He picked up 2 really quick ones. The first, or I guess the fourth one, I was confused how he even got it. It felt like it was like clearly Guerrier, and he was like kind of just in the picture barely. And then the fifth one was also a little iffy, but that was kind of like when he fouls out, you and I looked at each other like, this is dead, because Coleman's way too important to what they do on both ends without Terrence Shannon that they didn't really have a lot of answers. Illinois only played 7 guys in this game. They've pretty much been doing that. Like, yeah, they'll throw Dre Gibbs Lawhorn a minute here and there, sometimes even deeper than that in the rotation, but like This is mostly a 7-man rotation without Shannon, and that's really 6.5 because Dane played 10 minutes. That's like the most he's played in a while.
And
So
what Dane have in those 7 minutes?
7 points, 4 rebounds.
Come on, man. How many times I gotta ask for it?
Card, I know we're not a math podcast, but could we do the per 40s real quick? 7 points and 4 rebounds in 10 minutes. What does that equate to? Not equivalent, equate.
No, you really put me on the spot here. So it would be that's in 10 minutes, 30 more minutes. So basically you would times that by 3. So that would be 21 points and 12 rebounds.
No.
28. No, 28 points. 28 points and 16 boards.
28 and 16 is what Dane would have if he played this whole game. And then Brad hit the podium after and basically said, yeah, he's important. His physicality is important. We got to find ways to get him on the floor, but we have to find ways to get him to defend because Dane was horrendous defensively.
Yeah, he was. He was. He certainly was.
And I don't think there's a way, like, Brad's acting like that's like a puzzle he can figure out. There is no puzzle to fix Dane Danger defensively. Like, he might be the worst defensive big in the sport.
Zone up.
I don't know that we're doing that. That's because Illinois' whole switchable defense thing is normally what makes them really special.
With that said, that's special. But if there's a team I'd zone, I would love to zone Maryland.
Well, I'm gonna say, with that said, they got cooked by Maryland game planning for their switches. And like, I like the Illinois all switchy DD.
Whoa.
Well, we do the dunky dunks, and we do what was the other one? Like, we said it for the Washington playoff game. It was like
Passy pass.
Yeah, like a lobby pass or something. Like, that's, I don't know what Illinois switch. Maryland killed it. And they killed it both ways too. Like, they killed it with, like, Jameer Young's gonna get Coleman on him, and Jameer Young's gonna cook him, and then Julian Reese gets a littler guy on him, and Julian Reese is gonna eat. This is the same Julian Reese, by the way, that had 0 points against Purdue. 0 point. Like, Julian Reese has had games where he's just totally disappeared this season, and he was letting Illinois know about it, which led to something in the handshake line, which we'll get to. But what about, like, defensively for Illinois? Were you fine with the game plan to switch everything? Would you have switched that in the middle of the game? Like, how much is on Brad for that versus the execution?
I think it's more of an execution thing. I think that Jameer Young made some tough shots. I mean, he was 11 for 24 from the field. I just thought that I think you just got to kind of, tip your cap to Jameer Young being a good guard. And like, that's what he does. He's going to make shots at the rim, make tough ones. I think it's just accentuated more because of how tough it was on the offensive end. That's the thing. Like, I don't think the defense was necessarily awful. I think they could have been tougher as far as rebounding and maybe making it a little bit tougher. But at the same time, when you sometimes want to switch what your team is doing, it could throw your entire team off. And I don't know. Do you feel the same about that, or do you think they maybe should have switched it up?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think Illinois should go away from being who they are. And I think the thing that makes them most special is all these interchangeable 6'6" dudes. So, like, on paper that worked, but when you have guys like Jameer Young and Julian Reese who have had games they've really struggled, and they're clearly cooking you with the one look you're throwing at them, like, maybe throw something else at them. Like,
I mean, okay, when you say that, and then I started looking at like, you let Maryland come on the road and beat you, and they only hit 4 threes.
that's the thing that can't be said loud enough here is Maryland is so bad offensively.
Yes.
They're so bad offensively, and they looked so good offensively in this game. And that's a credit to Kevin Willard, and it's a credit to the players. But it's weird to come on this recap and be like, Kevin Willard cooked Brad Underwood. But I think that's kind of what happened here. And I know the players need to execute it, but, like, they asked Willard after the game, like, well, how were those guys able to get going? He was like, well, we scouted it. They switch everything. We weren't going to let them do that. Like, Kevin Willard was like, we had your playbook, and we knew what's going, and we did this. And Brad didn't adjust, really. The adjustment was just like, hey, guys, figure it out, and maybe I'll yell at you a little. And he did do that. And for the record, I love yelling. I said that to you in the basement. I was like, oh, no, Brad's I love Brad. He's here. Like I liked seeing that fire from him with this team because to me, it works with this group because you can tell how much Brad trusts this group. Whereas like last year, it felt like he was on a different page than the players as he was screaming at them. This year, it's like he's praised these guys infinitely so many times and talked about his love for them. To see him like go at a guy like Damask like that, it was kind of, I don't know. Like I felt like there's a fire here and there's a next level for Brad this year that I was okay with. But I don't know. That's not to say like I'm okay with what Brad Underwood did in this game because I thought he had a horrible game plan. Kevin Willard cooked him. That can't happen if you're who I think Illinois is. And ultimately, this is going to be one of the worst losses any good team has this year in Big Ten play.
Yeah, you can't lose at home to Maryland. I'm sorry. It's
Can't
it's
do it.
it's, it's inexcusable. I don't care how cold it is outside. I don't care how the Orange Crush looks. I don't care that you can't hit a shot. You got to find a way to beat Maryland at home. That's I get it. I know there's a lot of this team struggles with Illinois. I'm sorry, struggles with Maryland. Like they just always will. I try to put it in the terms of like no matter how Michigan State is good, like we struggle against Northwestern. Maybe Illinois has those same kind of demons with this Maryland team, but like at the same time, I don't care. This is you're a good basketball team. You're at home. You can't hit a shot. They're making shots. You're getting Geronimo and Harris Smith hitting threes. That sucks. Boo hoo. Find a way to win the basketball game.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it.
Yeah. Didn't happen. Total disaster of a loss, just for the record. And a loss that might end up really costly, Cart. Like, they're 2 games back now from Wisconsin in the Big Ten race. You said a month ago that this was a 2-team race between Illinois and Purdue. I feel like this might be a loss that kind of like eliminates them from contention because Purdue's going to win a lot of games. And there's a lot
Yeah,
of uncertainty with Illinois still.
a lot of uncertainty. Things that obviously you don't want this to compile either. Like a home loss to Maryland is something that you could stick with you, but you can't let it stick to you because you need to win basketball games moving forward. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that they definitely made things harder on themselves in keeping pace with, the Big Ten leaders. And they also gave one more notch in the ring to Wisconsin. And it's all time for us to really, really take a deep look within ourselves and be okay with Greg Gard winning this conference because it might happen. So prepare yourself.
Yeah, I still really believe in Illinois come March, especially if they get Shannon back. I was getting cooked in my mentions. Purdue fans really chirping Illinois fans. I think it was the Coleman tweet that lit a bit of a fire under them. But yeah, Purdue fans were kind of victory lapping and wondering how if we were going to raise the red flag here on Illinois and scream about this. And look, it's a horrible loss. We are very clearly saying that. This is a horrendous loss for a program we really believe in. But yeah, it's like I don't know. I think it's time to seriously consider the fact Wisconsin just might like quietly win this shit while like Purdue and Illinois just like get pettier and pettier with each other and keep losing random games they shouldn't. Wisconsin's just going to be like 8-0 in the Big Ten soon. It's crazy. Um, the handshake line.
Wait, before we get to the handshake line, with that said, or are you going to connect this? Since, the Purdue faithful do want to know, are we raising a red flag with this Illinois team?
No. Are you?
Uh, to be honest, no. No. I just don't see this team being that bad finishing and shooting that they were in that game. Like I've seen this team make plenty of the easy bunnies layups that they missed today. Now if they keep doing it, then maybe I'll raise the red flag. But as of right now, no. Also, there's a world where they get an All-American back and maybe sooner rather than later. So that also factors in.
Yeah, what's the red flag? Like to me, the floor for this team is they're an NCAA tournament team, and even like if they go 500 the rest of Big Ten play, I don't think that's like a red flag for this program. Like they lost their best player, and they're still a pretty good basketball team. Now,
Right.
this was a horrible game from a team I think is still a pretty good basketball team. And if they lose another one that's this bad, then yes, it's absolutely time to like scream about how bad it is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I saw a ton in this game that I think will continue to plague them. I thought they just missed a bunch of bunnies. Guerrier looked terrified. They got nothing from Harmon, and Coleman fouled out. Played 11 less minutes than they needed from him. So tough. Also, like Deshaun Harris Smith hit a corner three. What are we supposed to do with that, man? Like that's not supposed to happen. Okay, the handshake line. What'd you see in the handshake line? We end up with Julian Reese, very demonstrative with Tim Anderson. Not great. On the slow-mo of this, once a few more angles started to come through, what happened was Tim Anderson did not shake his hand. Just walked through the handshake line, did not extend a hand to Julian Reese. Julian Reese did not like it. In the days since, there has been, I don't want to say reports, but the words or the story or the rumblings from the Illinois side is that Julian Reese had some very particular specific words for the Illinois bench in the middle of this game that warranted that type of response from Tim Anderson. I don't love that, but that's their side of the story. What did you make of the incident with Julian Reese in the handshake line?
I'm gonna pull rank here in this situation because I'm not coming on here to argue about this. What Tim Anderson did is completely unacceptable in any way, shape, or form that you put it. I don't care what Julian Reese said on the to your bench or to you or to the players on your team. As an assistant coach of the basketball team, you don't snub another player in the handshake line. There's other ways to go about it. Maybe you say something to Willard as you go by. I'm like, hey, just so you know, like I didn't appreciate that from Reese. I get it, something like that. But you don't snub a player as an assistant coach. That's unacceptable. I'm pretty sure that Coach Underwood would say the exact same thing. And look, I like Tim Anderson too. Like I think he's a really good assistant coach. I just think he made a mistake in this situation, but he is 100% in the wrong for this. You cannot do that as a coach. You can't snub a player. Also, Julian Reese was whooping y'all ass. So, like, if he had a couple words for you, like, maybe stop him. I mean, his talking was warranted, to be honest with you. And I get it. There's probably some things said that you want to maybe say, like, cross the line. There's another way to address it besides snubbing the player in the handshake line. And then after you snub him, basically going back and forth with him, like, verbally. So, yeah, it's unacceptable. I'm not here to like argue with it either. I saw a couple of line on Twitter being like, "Oh, there's a whole nother backdrop. There's a whole nother story to this." There's no story to it. Like I said, and like I'm going to say for the fourth time in the last minute, as an assistant coach, you don't snub a player in the handshake line. There's no world or way or reason that should happen.
Did you ever get snubbed in the handshake line?
I've got snubbed in the handshake line by players. I've never been snubbed in the handshake line by coaches. And I said things to coaches. Let that be known.
I know you had some choice words for opposing.
I've crossed lines plenty of times. And I actually had a situation like that. And the assistant coach came up to me after the game and like caught me on the way out and like said something to me. And I understood because like I did say something like pretty out of line. But at the same time, we went to the handshake line. He shook my hand. Like I've never ever been snubbed. I've never seen a coach snub a player like in the handshake line. I can't think of one in my head where that's happened.
What did you say in that moment, by the way? Do you mind sharing with us?
Just some expletives that were very, very pointed.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the main defenses of Anderson that I saw from Illinois people was, well, like, come on, like Julian Reese is an adult here. Like these kids are 20, 21, 22.
No.
Like he's an adult. It doesn't matter how old he is or if he's an adult or not, however you want to frame it. It doesn't matter. Like the person of seniority is the coach, and the person of like report to the coach is the player. And especially players on the like you don't have domain over the other team's players. You just like you don't. You shouldn't have any sort of interaction with them. Like just straight up, other than like watching them play and then If you want to say something after the game in a positive way or whatever respectful way, fine. But like, those aren't your players. You don't coach those players. If things get chippy, guys are competitive. I get that. I'm sure coaches talk shit in the middle of games to players. It happens. But yeah, in that moment, there's no room for anything other than shake the hand and get out of here. And I know that's funny because I'm the one speaking on this, and my coach is the king of handshake line issues. For the record, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the reactions we've done. I hated it every time. Like I've come on here and said how childish that is from my head coach every single time. So it was a little bit refreshing just to see somebody else do it. And now no punches were thrown. It didn't get drastic, but it was funny just to see, oh, okay, so there's craziness from other coaching staffs too here. But yeah, horrible look. And the biggest reason it was a horrible look more than anything was what you said. Julian Reese busted their ass. Julian Reese destroyed their bigs. Julian Reese destroyed their littles. It didn't matter. They kept switching and letting Julian Reese eat them alive. They lost the game because of points in the paint. Julian Reese had 20. Julian Reese never has 20. Like, go through all his games this season. He has 2 games with more than 20 points. They came against Penn State and Rider. Like, come on, man. So yeah, I don't know what would have been said there. I don't care what Julian Reese said. I don't care. He's a player. He can be immature. Players can do that. Tim Anderson needs to be better in that moment. And it was a bad look. And quite frankly, kind of feels like he's just getting away with it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no, I don't think the Big Ten's going to do anything, and I don't think the Big Ten should do anything, to be very clear. But like, where's the comment from Brad on this? Where's like Tim?
Yeah, I was very disappointed to see the reaction from like Illini fans, to be honest with you, because it seemed like it was very like it was everyone felt the same way. Like, oh, Julian Reese said something to them to like invoke it. And to me, there's no like gray area here, to be honest with you. Like you are coach, he player, you can't do that. That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Stepping back broadly, just want to appreciate the Real Housewives of Champaign. Is it fair that we can use that term again, Cart, after an incident like this?
Not yet. Not yet. But this is like a nice little, maybe this is a trailer. Hopefully, maybe the writers stop showing up. They go on writer strike again, so we don't get a full season, a full half season mini series of the Real Housewives of Champaign. But it is a little good to have a little, something like this happen.
Like the thing was like, like I was gonna say it's been a pretty calm year. Like it's been a relatively calm season of Illinois basketball, except for the fact that like it hasn't at all. Like if you were going program by program and listing the programs with the most like off the court wildness, Illinois is probably still at the top. And that's a really shitty way to frame the Terrence Shannon situation. But like in this season of Illinois basketball, various things that have been insane to think about and process have been like Sincere Harris randomly redshirting 5 games into the year. That was just like quirky and odd. Then we get their best player with some very serious allegations that's scary and horrible, and now lingering, and we don't know if it actually is scary or horrible. Like, we just know the allegations are horrible, but like, is he going to come back? Is he not? Nobody knows. Now we get this, like an assistant coach just not shaking a player's hand after a horrible loss, their worst loss of the season. And then he who shall not be named, mom, has been a highlight on Twitter all year. So like there's just been a lot of content to work with, even though like one of those things is clearly not content. It's a very serious incident. But like let's step back and broadly, it's been a quiet year and all of that has happened for Illinois. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's January 15th too.
It's crazy. Just crazy. A lot going on, as there always is with Illinois basketball. But anyways, all right. They're going to bounce back. They got Michigan later this week. That seems like a pretty good team to bounce back against.
Definitely a good spot. Is it where is the game?
Chrysler.
Oh, so Doug will be there. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. All right. We'll preview that one in a couple of days. Can't wait to talk about how Juwan Howard's going to guard Ty Rodgers with Will Cheddar.